Have you ever noticed that some people show you who they are very quickly? They speak early, they answer questions confidently, they sound very sure of themselves. And as a leader or a founder of a company, that can be really reassuring because confidence feels like a steadier. It feels familiar. It feels like something that you can trust. So you walk out of an interview or a meeting thinking, man, that one's a slam dunk. Hi, I'm James Mayhew, and this is the Leadership in 5 podcast, High Performers. To me, it's really interesting how early some decisions can get made without it really ever being named or thought of as an actual decision. So let me lay it out like this. Someone speaks with confidence, and they get mentally tagged as a future leader. Or someone hesitates, and they get quietly categorized as maybe timid or unsure, not ready. Or someone brings energy into the room and it registers as ownership. And another brings caution and it registers as weakness. That doesn't come from bad intent. That just comes from human nature. See, leaders and founders, you trust your judgment because most of the time it served you really well. You've learned to move fast. You've learned to make decisions on the fly and make them quickly. You've learned to rely on what feels clear in the moment. Now, the issue, it isn't that these reads happen. The issue could be is how early they become solid and they harden for you. See, once you feel certain about someone, you stop watching them as closely. You aren't as curious about them. You're not as open to what their possibilities are. And you start interpreting what they do through the story that you've already told yourself. Now, from that point on, everything that person does either confirms that for you or it quietly disappears. Now, the confident person, they get more room to experiment. The careful person, they kind of get boxed in. And the one who moves fast gets trusted with a little more ambiguity. And the one who waits, well, they might get read as hesitant. Now, keep in mind, I'm not saying anything's broken here. This is just laying out how judgment in our brains works. But it's also where something subtle can start to narrow. Because some people, they don't show their best thinking early. They don't process things out loud and they don't lead with certainty. They watch and they listen and they connect dots before they speak. And in environments that reward speed and confidence, that kind of judgment doesn't read as potential. It reads as absence. So leaders end up feeling disappointed months later without really quite knowing why. They thought they saw everything they needed to see early on. Now they're reacting to a gap that didn't feel visible at the beginning. This isn't about you trusting your instincts less. It's about noticing how quickly certainty can form in your mind and how early some conclusions can get locked in. Now, before we ever talk about performance, before we ever talk about ownership or engagement, it's worth slowing down the moment when you decided you really understood someone, because that moment shapes everything that follows. And that's worth thinking about today.